I never thought, Darren, I would say these words. New Orleans is under snow.
And not only New Orleans is under snow, but what, 5.5 hours north, we didn't even get rain. I mean,
Baton Rouge is completely shut down.
Lake Charles is experiencing blizzard-like conditions.
Did you see the pictures from Gulf Shores, Orange Beach,
Oh,
Pensacola, Destin?
well,
Incredible.
absolutely unreal. Oh, there's this app if you're Roku or smart TV people called like Beach TV. I hadn't even thought about it. I'm going to do that as soon as we finish recording. You can download it, and there's like all through like Gulf Shores, maybe even Mobile and Panama City and Pensacola. You can like go to live streams. Oh, hadn't even thought about doing that today. I'm gonna have to do that as soon as we finish recording because there's going to be some interesting scenes along the beaches just to watch it live.
I'm not sad we didn't get any of that snow. We
No.
did get the cold weather. We got stuck with that part.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
here's your frigid temperatures.
Yeah.
And just a reminder that if you're cold, they're cold. So when you see that gator out in the wild, make sure you bring that gator in for the night because he's awfully cold out there.
Does that apply to neutral rats as well? Is that?
Ew. Hmm.
There's a line somewhere. I don't know where it is.
We eat a lot of things in Louisiana, but that has not caught on.
No, it has not. Matter of fact, I think we've talked about this before. Isn't there still like certain seasons, like when the population gets too high, there's like a nutri-rat hunt and bounty or something like that. You get paid for each one you take out to control the population or something. I don't know.
I
Just
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
just a Louisiana thing wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't be shocking, would it?
No, not at all.
Speaking of shocking, this was disappointing. I was at lunch with my coworkers today, and we were talking about the game, the national championship game, which we're
Hmm.
going to talk about on this show in just a minute or
Absolutely.
so. So I thought I'm going to ask him a piece of trivia. I said, "What three schools in the BCS era have won at least 3 national championships?"
Okay.
Well, several of them said Alabama. That's a no-brainer.
Right.
Someone said Ohio State. Yeah. And then it took them a long time, and they were
Really?
no. And I'm like, where do we live? Like, oh, LSU.
Yeah.
I followed that up with if you listened or watched the Brew and Shaver Sports podcast, you would know that not a single
Shame,
one of them
shame.
listens or watches the show. These are the people I work with every day. Well, I was kind of hurt deeply,
Absolutely.
that stung. And I said, well, I'm going to call y'all out on the show tonight. And
That's
one of them
exactly
said,
right.
well, that's okay. We're not going to watch it anyway.
Not only do I know them personally, I'm pretty sure I know which one said that. But since I do, I might fire off some. I might let my opinion be known after we finish recording.
Now that I've processed that and got it off my
Right.
chest,
Absolutely.
I can move forward. Let's talk about the national championship game from last night.
Absolutely.
An Ohio State victory, 34-23 over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Look at the statistics. A pretty, first downs were even. Ohio State
Mhm.
ran all over them. I know it didn't seem like it at certain parts in the game. Notre Dame has a stout defense, but Darren, my impression of this game, yeah, I know we got the statistics up on the screen and in total yards. You can see everything favors Ohio State.
Mhm.
Was the Buckeyes jumped out to this big lead. They
Right.
were dominating, and it was almost like they got bored.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, let's just finish this game, get a victory. That enabled Notre Dame to get back into the game. A costly turnover near the beginning of the fourth quarter from Ohio State.
Absolutely.
but I didn't ever feel like Notre Dame was a threat in the
No.
second half. What about you?
No, I agree completely, and I think what Notre Dame did, or what Ohio State did, was exactly what you were saying. They got bored because they've been so dominant, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But I think what happened at that point and is the way Ohio State approached the game allowed Notre Dame to get back in. Notre Dame, I agree completely with you. There was never a moment where you felt like, oh, now wait a minute, Notre Dame's starting to seize control. It never really. I mean, they had some good plays. They had a couple of that first drive was a really good drive by Notre Dame. But outside of that, there was really never a moment where it was like, oh, wait a minute, are they coming back? It was like, well, yeah, they scored. They got the 2 point conversion. Let's see what. eh, But it never was, is momentum turning? Is this shifting? Are they taking a little bit? Every time Ohio State, anything that Notre Dame did on offense, Ohio State, when they got the ball back, immediately countered, even if not with a score, with a little bit of control of the ball, control of the clock. It just they controlled the flow and the momentum of the game from beginning to end.
You're right. The opening drive from Notre Dame was so impressive.
Yep.
After that drive, after the touchdown, as exciting as it was for Irish fans, my thought was, "Oh goodness, Riley Leonard is not going to survive this game."
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
He ran hard. He's such a great competitor. He got beat up on that first drive. They were putting
yeah.
some massive hits on him.
And I think the other thing that went through my head at the end of that drive was, okay, that was a good drive. Riley Leonard obviously looked impressive, but if your get out of a jam card is we're going to run the quarterback up the middle, they're going to scheme that. That's going that's not going to last all night. And I was hoping, just for the sake of the flow of the game and it being a hopefully kind of a nail biter game when you don't really have a dog in the hunt, that's what you want. Uh, was that they were just seeing something that they could exploit on the Ohio State offense, and it wasn't necessarily going to be a go-to, but I think it was a little bit more of a go-to than maybe even they intended. I think, and it eventually just didn't work. It still caught Ohio State off guard at times, but it didn't work the way it did on that first drive.
No, no. Ohio State quickly took over. What
Yep.
an incredibly loaded team! A
Yeah.
big win for Ryan
Absolutely.
Day and the Buckeyes. Well earned. They went through pretty tough road to get there, playing
Absolutely.
against a Notre Dame team that seemed to have been the darlings or the favorites of a lot of people who
Right.
didn't really have a team in this game.
Hmm.
But another moment that really stuck out to me, Darren, was I think it was in the fourth quarter. Notre Dame was down by 16, and it was a fourth down, and they were in Buckeye territory, field goal
Hmm.
range. And I thought they'd kind of been doing what they wanted on that drive. They throughout the game they went for it on fourth down, and they usually picked it
Hmm.
up. And Marcus Freeman decided to go for a field goal. I think this has probably already been scrutinized and will continue to be
Of course.
scrutinized.
Absolutely.
I think there was less than 10 minutes left in the game. You're down by
Hmm. Hmm.
16. Field goal knocks it down to 13. I realize the thinking there is, okay, now we're talking
Two scores.
uh, two score, but 16 you're still at a two score game.
Right. Absolutely.
So at that point, and I blurted it out loud, and I know it's not accurate. I know that's not what he was thinking, but I just blurted out loud, he just waved the white flag.
Uh,
Why when you got Notre or Ohio State on their heels, you've been converting fourth downs, you've got to get a score here. Why would you opt for a field goal there? And granted, he has his rationale. He's the head coach,
right.
so that's his prerogative. It confused me a little bit, and of course they ended up missing the field goal.
In that moment, one of the things that went through my mind was I wondered if this was a case of, well, analytics was the first thing that went through my mind. And I wondered if this was a case of, the analytics books. All the coaches talk about having one now. They've got the staff member that their entire job is to stand close to them with a 3 ring binder, basically during the game and say, okay, in this decision, in this position, we do this and we do this in this moment. I wonder if it was an analytical decision, which I still think, me personally, real easy for me to say. I'm not the head coach. Uh, I think that was a mistake. I think sometimes even with analytics, you still have to kind of go with flow of the game because there's no such thing as 100% analytics. So that was the first thing that popped in my head. I wonder if it was an analytics decision where analytics said, okay, at this point you at least put 3 points on the board, then this can happen, that can happen. I wonder if that was the rationale and the thinking. He made an analytically correct decision, but I agree 1,000% with you. It did not fit the flow of the game. I think it was a. I think it's one of those that when he goes back and watches the film, he'll go, should have kept pushing. I really think that'll be his. Probably never say it out loud in a press conference or anything, but in a room by himself watching tape, I think that's what'll go through his head.
Analytics is such a fine line
Absolutely.
between going with your gut, because football is an emotional game, and
Yes.
sometimes those emotions can get you in trouble. I think the fake punt they tried to run, I didn't
Hmm.
agree with that call. I thought that was a
Agree.
bad call. You gave the Ohio State the ball in your own territory, even though your
Yep.
defense may have stepped up. I'm not sure the risk reward was worth it in that
Agree.
situation. But you want to make the best decision. So, like you said, you're relying on these analytics and other coaches
Hmm.
to tell you, okay, here's what the analytics say. At the
Right.
end of the day, you have a gut. Marcus Freeman played college football. He understands the game, and of course, we can sit here all day long and second guess
Right.
decisions that we were sitting on our couch or chair in a chair
Exactly.
watching the game with no pressure on us.
Exactly.
So I don't want to minimize how
No.
tough it is to be a head coach. It just raised a lot of questions. I wasn't didn't follow the logic there.
And I think also it was a. I think another thing that adds to your point of defying or not understanding the logic. I mean, their struggles this year with kicking, well documented. I mean, he didn't walk a guy on. He didn't put somebody on the field behind the ball that was, inside 35. This guy's a beast. They don't have that on their team this year. So to me, that makes it make even less sense. And I think what we were talking about earlier with the whole never felt like they were seizing control. Boy, that moment was rough. To make that decision that we're not going to go for it on fourth down, we're not going to try to score the touchdown here and keep the drive going, and on top of that, you missed the field goal. That was that was hard. It is not surprising when you take that moment, kind of put that moment in a capsule and then use it to define the remainder of the game. It's not surprising that they didn't overcome it because that made it very, very, very difficult.
Yeah, kudos though to Ohio State. Played a
Good
great game on
gracious.
both sides of the ball. I thought they got a little conservative with their play calling
Yeah.
in the second half. Then the big 3rd and 11. Will Howard found a wide open Jeremiah Smith, which
Which,
I don't know why they didn't do more of that throughout the game. It's
yeah.
not just Smith. They've got a loaded wide receiver core,
Yep.
and
Yep.
they've got how many different guys that they can rotate in at running back.
Yep.
I just thought they got a little conservative, but that big big games to win a big game requires players to step up and make big plays. And Will Howard and
Absolutely.
Jeremiah Smith made the play that sealed the game.
There was a part of me, not because of Notre Dame, but there was a part of me during the second half when Notre Dame started to score. You could see exactly what you're talking about. Ohio State's play calling get conservative. You could almost see the team kind of tighten up. I don't think the team intentionally tightened up, but I think because of the play calling and the approach to the game, what you're talking about, I think you could see especially the offense, tighten up, not so much the defense. And there was a part of me that thought, oh, is this is Michigan Ohio State about to rear its ugly head for the first time in 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it was? Are we about to watch this go down? And of course, it didn't. I think what you say, that big play really kind of opened things up a little bit, and I think you could see a little bit of a different flow in the whole game from an offensive perspective from that point forward. But boy, there was a moment again. Not that you thought Notre Dame was going to all of a sudden take control of the game, but you thought, is this? Are we going to watch this happen after everything that's went on the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever? Are we about to watch this happen? But it didn't. But at least there were some Ohio State fans who were like, "Oh no, please don't. No, please don't. Throw a long pass. Do something. Please don't."
Yeah, no. Another factor here is the the monkey that was on Ryan Day's
Right.
back.
Mm-hmm.
Highly successful coach, winning percentage is up there with the best ever.
Yeah,
Yet he
absolutely.
had failed in his career to win the big game.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to see a different Ohio State program under his leadership going forward because that monkey has been taken off his back. Uh, he broke through that barrier, knocked down that wall, won a national championship. So this Ohio State program is not going away, and
Right.
they may even be better next year because they obviously have the money to spend to get the
Yeah,
players that they want
absolutely.
in there. And until the something's done to rein in NIL, and everybody's doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
LSU's spending money. Until something's done to kind of figure this out, we're going to continue to see this.
Yeah, and like you said, you watch a Kansas State quarterback hand the ball off to an Ole Miss running back, or and then the offense leaves the field and the defense comes on the field, and you watch an incredible Alabama defensive back. You couldn't help but think about NIL while watching the game, uh, and for college football, I hope you're wrong. No Ohio State, boo, go away. But for Ryan Day personally, just to see someone's personal success, I hope this is a monkey off the back moment for him. I hope he can take a next step in his career, in the way he approaches the game, in the way he approaches individual games. I hope this is just for him personally. I hope this is one of those moments.
Yeah, yeah. So congratulations to the Ohio State Buckeyes, national champions, college football.
And let's we got to give a few props. I want to. We have talked about as we have gone through this. Just one more kind of put a bow on it with Ohio State. How horribly ugly that Michigan was, and then how all of a sudden, and we've learned throughout the process of the week that there was a meeting where apparently everybody got a lot off of their chest, and that nobody in the coaching staff but Ryan Day was there with and the players, and so a lot of people got a lot of stuff off their chest, and apparently, man, did it make a difference. We've talked about how bigger, faster, stronger in every aspect of the game Ohio State has looked like compared to the teams they've played, now including Notre Dame over the last 4 weeks. And if you look at um, the offensive and defensive pass or yards per play, sorry, it is incredible what Ohio State was able to do. I mean, Tennessee, we talked about their defense all year long. How one of the top defenses in the nation, allowing 4.6 yards per play. Ohio State comes in and does 7.4. Oregon, 5.1 yards per play. Ohio State average, I mean, think about 1.2 yards away from a first down every time they touch the ball. That's unreal. It's insane. Texas 4.4, Notre Dame 4.8, and then 6.7, and then 6.5, and then last night 7.2. But then everybody talks about their offense. Look at what their defense did. They held Tennessee to 3.7 yards per play,
Hmm.
a team that was averaging over 6. They held Oregon Oregon, one of the most heralded offenses in the country, 3.9 yards per play. And then Texas and Notre Dame 5 and 5.3. But all of those teams have been averaging 6 yards or more and didn't even get close to that the entire night. Really, or the entire game. It really is incredible what Ohio State looked like and where Ryan Day got this team after that Michigan game for the last 4 weeks. A really impressive coaching job and a really impressive playing job on the field by these guys as well.
Yeah, yeah, dominating performance.
Yep, for sure.
And that leads us to take a look at the final AP Top 25 poll for this year. Here are the SEC teams that landed a spot in that final iteration. Texas at 4, Georgia at 6, Tennessee at 9, Ole Miss at 11, South Carolina at 15, Alabama at 17, Missouri at 21, and I think LSU finished, 27?
27. That's
Didn't quite
correct.
get the votes. So
They were about 20 votes outside of a 9-win Colorado. Don't get it. But anyway, I'll say it so you don't have to.
well, the media typically makes decisions that are completely uninformed. So
that, yet they're the ones that makes the decision. Good call. Was it time for a playoff? Just saying.
yeah. So that's your final AP Top 25 SEC football teams. Speaking of polls, Darren, how about we move over to SEC basketball, men and women, where we have a number of schools in both polls. A
Yes, we
huge
do.
matchup this week. We this show will come out on Tuesday of this week, Thursday of this week. I mean, on Wednesday of this week. So a day later, Thursday is a huge matchup. Game day is going to be there. Columbia,
Mhm.
South Carolina, for the LSU Lady Tigers. They're going to face South Carolina. Uh, 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 it's kind of one of those games in the past where LSU's trying to break through. They want to be the top dog in the SEC, but the only way you get there is you have to beat South Carolina, and
Absolutely.
that's proven to be a huge challenge. Dawn Staley always has that team loaded year in and year out,
Absolutely.
but it's going to be fun to watch. I hope it's going to be fun to watch on Thursday.
Yeah. Am I, and tell me if I am I over exaggerating when I say this is really in SEC women's basketball? I mean, yes, there's been women's basketball rivalries, Tennessee, UConn, of course, growing up in Tennessee, that's one of the first ones that pops in my head that garnered national attention. But within the SEC, this LSU South Carolina thing for women's basketball, this really feels like the first time that we're seeing women's basketball get to a level of there's at least a game every year that kind of like Tennessee Alabama has been for years, or Florida Alabama, or Florida Tennessee, LSU Alabama. They've all had those moments where there were several years that was the game that everybody talked about every year, and it really feels like this rivalry and these two teams have really taken that step with women's basketball in the SEC, and this is the game that every single year that people seem to be talking about, which obviously is great for the game and great for all the teams, but it's a really cool thing to see happen within the conference.
It has turned into a rivalry.
Yep.
Still, for a rivalry to truly be a rivalry, both teams have to win
Yep.
occasionally. And so that's proven to be elusive for LSU. Can they break through in this game? We'll wait and see. Both these teams, I imagine, will be in the mix for a deep
Oh,
run in
absolutely.
March. You got other schools out there. Of course, UCLA is pretty dominant. You can't count out USC. Connecticut is going to be a threat as well.
Hmm.
So, but from the SEC perspective, South Carolina has kind of ruled the roost, and LSU is trying to knock South Carolina off that hill.
Absolutely.
And that's part of where the excitement of watching a game like this comes in. You're like, can they do it this time? Are we going to see a balance of power transfer in the SEC?
Hmm. Hmm.
And right now, Dawn Staley in the South Carolina has maintained a stranglehold on that.
They're impressive.
So let's talk about the SEC women's teams in the top 25, South Carolina. Number 2, LSU at number 5. So this will be a top 5 matchup on Thursday. Texas at
Awesome.
7, Kentucky at 11, OU at 15, Tennessee at 17, and Alabama. How about that? Alabama at 19.
Sneaking in there.
On the men's side of things, we've got quite a bit of representation as well. The Auburn Tigers at 1, Alabama at 4, Florida at 5, Tennessee at 6, Kentucky at 9, A&M at 13, Mississippi State at 14, Ole Miss at 16, and Missouri at 22. So we have Tigers kind of bracketing the SEC teams, at least in the top 25.
Top. And I tell you, this has been, of course, the women's. It's awesome to see. Was it 8 teams? Is that what we said in the top 25? For the men to have 9 teams and everything to be so competitive in the league has been really fun to watch this year because we talked before pre-conference during pre-conference schedule before all the conference play started. It was how dominant the SEC was. You look through how many teams had one loss or no losses, and now those same teams that have one loss or no loss are now sitting with 3 losses because they've lost 2 conference games, or in some cases, 3 or 4 losses. And it's not because they're all of a sudden a bad team. It's because the level of competition is that crazy this year in the SEC. It's really an impressive level that I think it's has the potential. Let's see how everything shakes out. We're only in January, but I think this has the potential to have just a crazy amount of teams in the tournament that make a deep run. This might be one of those years people really genuinely get sick of hearing about SEC basketball when we're deep in the tournament. At least the potential is there, I feel like.
Yeah, and we could see upwards of 12 to 13 teams from the SEC in the men's tournament this year.
Absolutely.
I realize that for folks that love college football, it's your favorite sport. You may have not watched much basketball. SEC fans, there's a lot there
Oh,
to watch. It's fun. The games are competitive. We've got
yeah.
some really good teams this year that have a potential to do a lot of damage come
Yeah.
March. So if you're wondering where do I go now, college football's over. Well, the SEC basketball is here to help fill that void in your heart.
And you will not be bored. I mean, you can just turn on the TV. First thing that pops in my head is an Auburn home game. Turn on an Auburn home game. Turn the TV up just a hair. It can get close to giving you goosebumps. I mean, just how insane that atmosphere is, and it's not unique necessarily to Auburn. They might be a little bit of a level above right now, but it's not necessarily unique to them. You can see the same thing and hear the same thing in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, or even in Knoxville. The craziness, of course, Rupp. I mean, all they have to do is open the doors at Rupp, and 23,000 people show up screaming. There might not even be a game scheduled, and so
The,
I mean that's just Kentucky. That's just the way it is.
it's a little more, it's a little crazier though in Auburn. I think the
Yeah,
crowd
absolutely.
feeds off the energy sometimes of the head coach and Bruce Pearl. One thing he is never lacking of is energy.
That is a very accurate statement. I can't dispute a word of
Kentucky,
that.
you're still going to have the passionate fan base, like you said.
Yep,
They're going to have no problems filling the arena, but you're going to
absolutely.
have sections when you look through the arena and you're like, it looks like those folks came right from the Kentucky Derby.
No, that's true.
Yep.
And speaking of SEC basketball, I don't know if you watched any basketball this weekend, but Vanderbilt and Tennessee played. I like the way that worked out. All right, that's all I'm saying. I won't say another word. I just had to throw it in
Yeah, the Commodores
there.
own Tennessee this weekend.
That's right. Saturday and Sunday, men's and women's. It was a good black and gold weekend. Can't lie.
I'm waiting to hear from our friend Brandon, a huge Tennessee fan. I haven't heard from him. What's
Yeah,
even more shocking is I haven't heard from Buckeye Doug.
you have not heard from. figured we would have to like block him from the podcast or something.
Doug the Buckeye, whatever we call him.
Doug the
He's
Buckeye.
he's strangely been silent. I thought he was going to give me an earful. Like, how about those Buckeyes domination? He's probably waiting for me to congratulate him. That would probably be the polite thing for me to do, is say congratulations on your team. I'm going to let him calm down a little bit,
There you go. Good call.
before. But oh
But,
goodness,
he may have not contacted us because we did him wrong on names. Because Buckeye Doug is so much better than Doug the Buckeye.
it
Why
is
did we
Buckeye
not
Doug.
think of the Buckeye Doug is what it should have been from the beginning? So Doug, we apologize, Buckeye Doug. Going forward, that'll be
Your new moniker. Welcome.
and I will text Brandon. Did not cross my mind. I will text Brandon when we finish recording. Hey, how was your weekend, buddy?
Now, just be careful. He's probably a little irritated because they've gotten so much snow up in West Virginia. He's been
Oh,
having to shovel the driveway. I don't think he's happy about doing that. So you might want to feel him out a little bit before you start. Throw him a few softballs before you start pelting him with ice balls.
first text. Are you currently in the driveway? That's where that's where I'll start.
Oh goodness. Thanks for watching another episode. We like to talk about sports. We like to have fun. I hope you do as well. That's probably why you're here. We have that in common. And
Absolutely.
don't be like my coworkers.
That's right.
Subscribe to the show, like the show, tell your friends about it.
That's
And
right.
I don't know, maybe no, I'm not going to say that. That wouldn't be polite of me to say that. I'm very thankful for my coworkers. They
There
are
you go.
wonderful people.
Well
I just
said.
wish
That's
they'd
exactly
subscribe and
right.
watch the show. So would you do that
Exactly.
for me? That'd mean a lot to me and Darren if you would do that. So
Yes.
we thank you so much for watching as we segue from college football into college basketball. We hope that you continue to join us on this journey. There's so much to talk about in the SEC, where, as
Yep.
we say often, it just means more, right?
That's right. Exactly right. Well said.
Till next time, y'all take care.
Have a great week.
Thank you for making the Brew and Shaver Sports Podcast your go-to sports show. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show if you haven't already. Your feedback is so important. Let us know what you think about this week's show. Send an email to brewandshavers@gmail.com or a text to our text line 318-390-3599. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again for listening to the Brew and Shavers Sports Podcast. See you next week.